No, I drove him away. And I'm gonna be 40.
When?
Someday.
In 8 years.
But it's there. It's just sitting there like this big dead end. And it's not the same for men. Charlie Chaplin had babies when he was 73.
Yeah, but he was too old to pick them up.
That's Meg Ryan turning the dreaded 4-0 in the 1989 movie When Harry Met Sally.
But our next
Nora
guest
Ephron
says,
at her best.
we don't have to fear 40. Really?
Yeah.
Why did I say I was 40 when I was 37, 38, and 39 just to get used to it?
Yeah.
Let's find out. Joining us now, the author of Fortytude, making the next decades of the best years of your life through the 40s, 50s, and beyond. Sarah Brokaw. She's also, well, she's Tom's daughter.
Right.
I love that.
Or Tom is your dad. So Sarah, it is. Well, let me first of all ask you, is it different for men than women? Because I'll tell you, when I turned 40,
yes.
I'm asking Sarah the
What
guest.
a dumb question. Of course it's different. Didn't you just see the clip?
I would have to actually
When I
agree
turned
with
40,
you.
I was fine. I was
Right.
like, I'm glad. But is it tougher for women?
I think in some areas, yes, and in some areas, no. I think that the area that I think is most difficult for women is obviously their biological clock. That their peak of fertility, right, is at 28. So they're here. When they hit 35, they're here. When they're 37, they're here. And when they're 40, they're down here. And as you can imagine, many women would like to have children. So when they know that they're fighting against their biological clock is when they start to really realize that they're slowly but surely aging and losing their youth. Men obviously don't have to deal with that. What men do have to deal with, though, is how much money they make. I think that many men at this age really start to compare and despair. They start to look at their own income and compare it to their cohorts and think, I'm not making half as much money as my cohorts, then I'm really not as successful, therefore I can't continue on a path of success because I'm not making that money.
And that's why I hate Harold Ford Jr.
Why?
Because he's just so rich.
Well,
he's got money. He's got $100 bills on the inside.
Sarah, you bring up a good point, though.
I'm a professor at NYU.
Because with men, it's identity. But do you truly think there's no difference for men and women in turning 40? It's a horrendous difference. It's a horrendous difference.
Also, the other difference is that I think that women in our 20s, we're considered to be at our prime.
Exactly.
We're considered to be relevant. That's when men, or society, not just men, but when men and women pay a lot of attention to us. In our 30s is when we're supposed to be married, have kids.
Right.
Right. Those are the traditional milestones we're supposed to face. And then I think what happens is that when we get into our mid to late 30s and into our 40s is when we slowly but surely feel less relevant. Now, I don't think men, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, that men would feel less relevant as they age.
No, they don't.
Right. No, we don't.
We don't need to ask them.
We like we like our 40s, Harold, don't we? So what are the 5 things? And I'm sure there are 5 things. I'm just guessing. What are the 5 things that women need to embrace as they go through their 40s to get through it easier?
I think that it's called the 5 core values that we need to use as our guiding principles on an everyday basis, and that is grace, connectedness, accomplishment without the monetary or materialistic factor, adventure, and spirituality.
Okay, let's start with the grace.
Yes.
Talk about it.
Grace, to me, the way I define in my own terms, is that I can capitalize on my own strengths and walk into a room and still admire another woman's strengths without being jealous. So I remove jealousy and replace it with admiration.
So you can look at a 26-year-old and go,
5'10", stunningly beautiful, comes in. The 5'2".
Jill's able to do that too.
Yes. The problem is, it's great that you can do that, but what's isn't the problem that others don't, especially the men that we work with?
Believe me, it's not like there have been moments where I've, experienced jealousy. That's going to happen. I think that's just part of the human condition, that we start to compare ourselves to others. And I think that what we have to do, though, especially at our age, is to recognize that everyone ages. That 26-year-old's going to be 41 at some point. So she's going to experience.
And you know so much more at 41 than 26.
Absolutely.
Embrace what you are, what you've learned, and actually befriend that 26-year-old and say,
it's not
watch
the
out for these bumps in the
26-year-old
road.
that I respond to. I respond to the men who are
looking at the 26-year-old.
Well, and putting a false value on the accomplishment of the 26-year-old versus the accomplishment of the 42-year-old.
In terms of, you mean looks? You're talking about looks.
I would say it starts with looks, but it ends with promotions and things like that happen every step of the way, and I think feed into exactly why you feel you need to write this book. I could be wrong, you tell me, but these are the struggles that we face, and I don't know if we can fix it within ourselves necessarily.
Oh, absolutely. I think that it's too divisive to say that it's men against women.
No, yeah.
I think it's really about women understanding that with loss of youth, right, which is maybe loss of looks or wrinkles and whatnot, or increase of the hips.
Yeah, you can't be distracted by my hand motion.
Okay, gotcha.
Keep going.
Okay. I think that it's essential to realize that as women in our 40s that we have loss of youth, but we have gain of insight and wisdom. I think that's really important. I also think that women in the corporate world need to realize that we are now mentors.
Right.
That we can be at the top of the ladder, but we can also guide these women who are struggling through the labyrinth in the corporate world.
Exactly, and value, again, wisdom and experience and the things that really do matter at the end of the day, Willie, in life, instead of just looking at somebody going, oh, she looks younger. That's shallow.
It's totally shallow. Another big question is, I know you touch on a little bit, is motherhood. And we've dealt with it, Joe and I, in our families. We've dealt with it directly. But you have the kid, you have the good job. On the one hand, you feel like maybe you're being a bad mom for working too hard. On the other hand, if you're with your kids too much, am I letting it slip at work? Is somebody passing me by? That, to me, is one of the biggest conflicts at that point, too.
I think you're right. And I think that's something that many women have said to me in my practice and also outside of my practice. I am a psychotherapist by trade, and a lot of women have come in and they look exhausted and they say, how is it possible for me to cram in 72-hour days into a 24-hour day? How is that possible? And how can I play every role successfully? The role as a mother, the role as an employed woman, the role as a wife, the role as a friend. And at that point is when I look at them and I say, give yourself a break. No one can ever play every role at 100%. There's going to be a moment where you're going to do very well in the corporate world, or even if you're not employed. I think that many women take on many roles. And I think it's just about forgiving ourselves, is what I would say.
Can I give myself a break?
Yeah, you can.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it. Sarah Brokaw, the book is 42.
I love it.
Back.
Yes.